being vulnerable, I think like it's just for me it was a fear. Like I realized like being this man and whatever else, I was afraid of everything.
Here we are in Los Angeles, California. We are doing another episode of Love is a Memory.
Love is the remedy.
Love is the remedy. We're going to keep that in there. And we're excited to have Scott here. So
Yes, hi,
what's
Scott.
happened since the last time we did this is I moved to Los Angeles. Aaron has also moved. We previously were in Denver, Colorado. And we're really fortunate that Scott's here joining us in Los Angeles.
Yes,
He
came all the way from Denver.
From Denver,
Thank you. And Miami, whichever, depends on
Yeah, and also Miami. And we're just really grateful to have you here, Scott. Thanks for coming along. And as we typically do this, we're going to get to know you. We're going to talk about different things. Aaron, I don't know if there's anything you want to say.
Yeah, I just want to get right into it. I want to get Scott to tell his story, and
Okay.
let's talk about a little bit about why you're here, and then we're going to start asking you questions. So why did you want to come on today?
Well, first let's
Wait.
start. Sorry to interrupt. But first
I always
start-
ask the wrong
But no. The question is just, how did you know each other? How did this come about?
how did we know each other?
Yeah, so we work in the same real estate brokerage in Denver, and just kind of had a couple conversations, and we were gonna try and work with a builder, but that didn't quite work out so well. And then pretty much since then, just kind of kept in touch. It was-
We talk real estate shop, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
Scott messaged me and said, and I said, let's get this guy on the podcast. He told me a story. No, I'm
Yeah.
just kidding. So anyway, that's it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. Curious. I mean, as a viewer, I'd be curious, so I just want to, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so Scott, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? Where did you grow up?
What do you?
Yeah, so Scott Castro. I grew up in Florida, the Panhandle, so up north. Military for 20 years. Retired in 2016. From
Which
there,
branch of the military?
I was Air Force.
Air Force. Well,
Yeah.
Were you a
okay.
pilot?
No, I was, no.
That's what you always get asked.
No, yeah, everyone else, no, not a pilot. Wasn't smart enough for that one. And then after military, got into real estate, and basically been doing it ever since.
How long were you in the military for, you said?
20 years.
20 years.
Yeah.
Well, as is typical, thank you for your service.
Yeah,
Of course.
yeah. Everyone says that, but I always kind of get a little shy about it, or because it was a job. I got paid, so it wasn't like
Yeah.
everyone says that. But it's like when you get paid to do a job, it's
You were like, hold on, Diego needs some help.
Yeah.
I'm going to go defend his freedom. Let me go. It didn't work that way.
no. But yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you. But yeah, I always say kind of like it's all good. I got paid. It was a job. So military 20 years. I retired in Las Vegas. That was my last duty station. Then from there, my family, my mom and my sister had moved to Colorado, to Denver, and they were kind of like, hey, we want to be around you a little more. We haven't seen you for a long, long time. You haven't been around us for a long, long time. So let's get closer. Let's do family stuff and be together. So I decided to take the leap and move to Denver in 2016, is what, around there. And been there ever since. And yeah.
So, obviously, we're all curious. You get asked this all the time. Were you seeing combat? Where were you at in the... And again, you have to talk to us about it, but so the viewers understand sort of the context.
Yeah, so I mean, I've been deployed about 12 times. Most of them were like 1-year deployments. So, been to Iraq, Afghanistan, Djibouti, Africa, Kuwait, Turkey, all over
All over the
Middle
place.
East. Yeah.
And now that's behind you, of course. Like that's
Yeah.
that's the past. That's old
Yeah.
Scott. We're going to
Yeah,
talk
yeah.
about new Scott.
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
think that sometimes when we're transitioning, it helps people to know where you're coming from and to know where you're going sometimes, right?
Yeah, and why
Yeah.
you're here.
Yeah.
So, any other questions about sort of the background and
I
history?
think that's good
Yeah.
comment. Well, I'm just
Yeah,
because
do you
I'm
have anything
Latino.
else?
You grew up in
Yeah,
Florida,
yeah.
so where are you from exactly? And-
So I mean, originally I was born in Puerto Rico. I was born in Ponce.
Ponce.
Family, my dad was military, but we are Puerto Rican, like heritage-wise. Dad was military. We got stationed in California, and then when I was probably like 10 or 11, we moved from California to Florida. And then my dad retired, stayed there. I stayed there. Family stayed there. Graduated high school, joined the military, and then
Went out.
Wow.
Yeah.
So Boricua? Like, is that part of your identity?
I think it is. Yeah, definitely. Hispanic culture and Puerto Rican culture is definitely in my blood. Definitely, it's you know, I have like the tattoos are all
Wow.
Puerto Rican stuff. So
Yeah, no,
this
I
is-
mean, I'm from Mexico originally, and obviously the cultures are different. There's some common things. Obviously, the language is the big one, but yeah, I just ask because I think it's an interesting thing to grow up in America when you have an awareness of the dual culture. Because I think most people are just like, oh, you're American.
Yeah.
It's like you are American, but then your idea of masculinity, who you are as a man, all that
Yeah.
stuff is because it's the home life that's informed by both the
Yeah.
TV at home, but then your dad and everything.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's growing up was, I mean, of course it's normal for you because you don't know anything else when you're growing up, but now seeing other people, how they do things, and especially like, you know, like white America or black America, it's way different from Hispanic
Wait,
America.
¿qué estás
Hispanic-
haciendo, Diego? ¿Qué está pasando?
Yeah.
Yeah, you go to people's houses, everyone's quiet. You're
Yeah,
like, why is everyone quiet?
Way different from Hispanic America. You know, Hispanic America, they got the plastic on the couches. And you can't, you know what I mean? You have to sit there and like, you know, stuff like that. So it's it's definitely way different. And learning about other cultures and stuff has been interesting. That definitely, it's been fun. I like it.
So let's go ahead, and I'm curious to know, you got to Denver, you end up in Denver after your military service, and you're going to reconnect with family, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about what was it like when you got to Denver? Did you immediately bond? Were you, like, what happened when you got there?
So my sister and my mother were living there. My mom was remarried. My sister was married, and they moved to Colorado. And they were convincing me to, you know, move there, be close to family, stuff like that. So I was expecting to get to Denver and be like family environment and stuff, because in the military, you don't really have like a family environment. You have like a brotherhood. So it's mainly like kind of like male dominant, you know, stuff like that. So it's not really like family. It's just friends and brothers kind of stuff. So I was wanting, you know, the family environment and the family thing. So moved to Colorado, and didn't quite turn out that way. Kind of realized that like my sister and her family and my mom and her family, they had their own lives, and it wasn't like it was going to be me, my sister, and my mom. It was going to be me joining their families and doing their family stuff.
And so how did that kind of realization impact your experience?
A little depressed, because I guess my expectations were something way different than what reality was. And so it made me a little depressed and a little sad, because in my mind I was thinking I was going to have like family barbecues and like family events and hang out with the family and do stuff. And it wasn't quite like that. It was kind of, you know, every once in a while we'd hang out together or something. And I was pretty much on my own. So being on your own in a new city, new area, new place, and especially like, I'm not a mountain person. I'm not a hiker. I'm not a skier. I'm not a snowboarder. I don't do that kind of stuff. I love the beach. Like, that's my thing, is the beach. And being in this location where none of that, there's no beach, was definitely different. And then, you know, the high altitude, can't breathe, all that kind of stuff. It was
It's
just
a highly
different.
individualistic society. Like, I think growing up in Florida, I've been in Miami a bunch, and I don't know the northern area, but there's a huge emphasis on the community. And I feel like in Colorado, it's all about like the individual. Like, I'm going hiking on a 14er by myself.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
it's very much like me alone.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of independence in the Colorado area. And especially like being Hispanic, you always have family or cousins or aunts or uncles. And I didn't have any of that. So
You went from just even having a brotherhood with people around all the time.
Yeah.
In the military, at least you had that, some kind of interactions, people to be with all the time, kind of on a purpose together.
Yeah.
And then to what you thought was going to be this family environment, community again, and it turned out to be very isolating for you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was tough.
So
Yeah.
then what?
After that, it was pretty much just kind of, I started to honestly isolate myself a lot. I wasn't doing stuff. You know, some people go to a new city, they try to explore, like see new places and check out the areas and stuff. I wasn't really into it because, like I said, I'm not into mountains and breweries and stuff like that. I mean, I definitely think Colorado's a beautiful place. And it's very nice.
It's very white.
Yeah.
I mean,
I didn't want to say it like that, but
Nothing,
yeah.
nothing
it's-
against white. I mean, I'm half white. We love white people. My best friend's white. But no.
Oh, you have to say.
but I just, it's the truth. Is
Yeah,
the,
it's a different mentality, a different society, and I can't even barely grow a beard. Like right here,
There's
this
no
doesn't
mountain
grow.
man happening
Yeah, there's
here.
no mountain man happening. I don't.
No hipster culture going on.
No, like I hate beer. I'm not a beer person.
Well, it's a
so,
monoculture. Like my experience of Denver is like there's this only one culture. And like we were talking last night, it's like
Yeah.
LA's got variety.
Yeah, and that's what I love. I love it. Like, that's why I love Florida, because it's just like, I mean, you have Hispanics, you have whites, you have blacks, you have Haitians, you have Jamaicans, there's Europeans. I mean, there's so many Russians. There's so many different cultures and everything there. Denver is just kind of like one culture.
No, it's tough to try to fit in because people gauge you in that. They're like,
Yeah.
"Are you going to the mountains this weekend? Are you doing this?" And it's like, man, I want to make movies, do art. Like,
Yeah.
it's hard to.
What did you? And you just wanted to be with family, and that didn't really happen.
Yeah, it didn't happen so much. So that I kind of, like I said, it made me a little bit depressed, and like I isolated myself from everything and everyone, and I didn't really know what to do, because I was kind of like, well, I don't like. I kept talking about like, I want to move back to Florida. My family was like, no, stay. And I was like, I want to be there and do stuff with my family, but it wasn't quite working out that way. And then like no relationships, wasn't in a relationship or anything, wasn't talking to anyone or do anything. So it kind of just made the situation just feel very lonely. And when you're lonely and you're there, your mind kind of starts going in all kinds of different directions. It starts thinking about the past, starts thinking about what's going on right now and what's going to happen in the future. And I couldn't really see much future and fun or enjoyment in the future.
I mean, and it sounds like too, like you've been so structured for 20 years in the military, and now there's no structure, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So that's a whole different.
Yeah, because you wake up every morning at 6-7 o'clock, go to the gym or do your physical training, and then go home, shower, change, ready, go back to work. You're in work. You're there from 8 till 4, whatever. Then once that's done, you go home, eat, relax, go to sleep, and do it again. And I did that for 20 years, and it was just there. So now, like when I got out of the military, it was like I don't have to call in, or I don't have to like be somewhere at a specific time, or I don't have to, I don't have to worry about anything. And I still got I got a retirement check, so I was like, I can still live normally and not have to worry about anything. But yeah, it was just
Isolating.
there was nothing. Yeah. There was nothing there.
So we were talking about then that isolation kind of led to, you said it led to loneliness, and it kind of led to some important things that were pivotal moments in your life. So you want to talk about what happened?
Yeah. So basically, the depression started to kind of come on. Anxieties, thinking about the past, regret, remorse.
What were some of the things you were regretting or having remorse over?
So regret about making certain decisions in life, not making certain decisions in life. I have 2 sons, and I was not in their lives very much as they were growing up. I was kind of pretty selfish. As I was kind of a kid myself. I was 21 years old when I had my first son, and just was selfish. Didn't know how to be a dad. My dad wasn't the best dad. He didn't teach me much. Didn't show me how to be a father or be there and stuff. So I just was kind of like a legacy. Like my dad's dad did it to him, and then he did it to me, and I did it to my kids. And so I kind of started thinking about those moments. That I have 2 sons, I wasn't really there for them. I didn't teach them how to play baseball. I didn't see any of their games and stuff, and so I had to start to have a lot of feelings towards that of regret and remorse on it, and was just like, man, I suck. And then that just turned into I'm not in a relationship. The last relationship I had was years and years and years ago. It ended, and there was no closure with it. Relationship with my family, talking to my mom or my sister. Previously, back, when I was younger, I used to be able to talk to my mom and have conversations with her. But after the military, a lot of things changed. I was isolated from them kind of, so I didn't really talk to my mom very much. And I didn't have any, I guess, any outlet for feelings or emotions. So everything just stayed inside and kept getting pushed deep down and stayed down there. And when you are by yourself, your mind just starts wandering. And so my mind just wandered all over the place, and it went from, like I said, not being there for my kids, not being in a relationship, not have and I've had women that have loved me and like wanted to be in a relationship with me, but I chose not to be. And then looking at that, going, man, I hurt them emotionally, and I didn't even take their feelings in consideration because I was just selfish. And then going into like, okay, how's that going to affect me tomorrow? Am I going to do the same thing with the next relationship or somebody who I meet or whatever? Am I even ready to meet anybody? And all that just kind of like overwhelmed me. And it got to a point where I was like, okay, I hate thinking about this stuff like on a daily basis. So how do I stop thinking about it? And ending my life was pretty much the only thing that kind of just became like everything funneled to just that. So I was like, okay, easy to do. Easy to do. Why not? Go for it. And the thing is that, like, I've dealt with suicides before. I was like a suicide counselor in the military, and I had 2 friends of mine that committed suicide. And, at that time, it affected me, but it didn't really affect me. I didn't think about it. I kind of was like, those idiots, dummies. And that was it. I didn't like cry about it, whatever. And like now when I think about it, see now here it comes again.
Yeah.
Now I think about it, and like I miss those people. And here I am thinking about it and thinking about doing it, and didn't consider anything. I just was like, just basically being selfish and going, hey, I'm going to do that and be gone, so that way I don't have to stress or worry or hurt anymore. And yeah, so I kind of
So you were in the
came to
process
that.
of making that decision, and then what I think is really powerful is something happened.
Yeah, so I one day I was just kind of tired of everything, just tired of just all of it, and decided to just call it a day. And it just so happened my mom came by my place, and I had like stop. I'm like, answer the door, and answer my door with
So
my
you
mom.
were in the middle of preparing to take your own life, and your mom stopped by in that moment.
Yeah, just out of nowhere, because she normally doesn't do that, and stopped by, and we just had a conversation and talked. And after she left, I thought like, okay, let me go back to what I was going to do before,
yeah.
but then it just didn't seem the same anymore. It was like, okay, what am I doing? And I was still sad and still depressed and so everything, but it was kind of like, okay, why did that just happen? Why did my mom just like at this moment in time? And I started thinking like my mom, like if I do this, my mom is going to like be hurting, my sister's going to be hurting, and I don't want them to feel that or have to go through that pain and stuff. So I was like, okay, I won't do this right now. We'll just put this away for a little bit, but I'll come back to it maybe. And like a couple weeks later, my stepfather and my stepbrother kind of just talked to me about like a men's group thing. It's called Liminal, and it's like a church men's group, and said, hey, I think you should go to this. It's a weekend up in the mountains with other men, and can't tell you much more about it. Just you just need to go.
And your first thought was,
I'm not doing that.
right.
I'm not doing that.
And
Like,
why were you not going to do it?
one of them was just pride. I was like, I don't need any help with this. I don't
I'm a
need
man.
it.
I got it.
Yeah, I'm a man.
Like white knuckle it.
Yeah, like I'll get through it. I don't need any help. I'm a man. I'm good. I'm not weak. I'm not like part of I'm not a little bitch.
I'm not like those other people who need help.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm happy to help them.
Yeah, exactly. So I was just like, I'm not doing this. But then I kind of was like, all right, I probably should. Let me think about it. And then they kind of kept like, hey, Scott, you should go. So I ended up going, and probably the best decision I've made in my life.
What happened there?
So there was about 40, 50 other guys, And I honestly learned about, it's not just, I'm not the only person who has these thoughts and these feelings and these emotions and these like is going through something. And there's other men out there that, honestly, it's not even other men. Almost every single man in the entire world has something going on with them where they're just, they feel like they have to be like the machismo and the man and like strong and everything else and take care of everything. And we never kind of learned or grew up or was taught like it's okay to have emotions and to cry and like talk about it and be vulnerable and
Or
everything.
to have had trauma that you didn't, that is now playing out in negative ways in your adult life that were never dealt with.
Yeah, I mean, I never knew, like, so I'll kind of retract. So I was sexually abused as a kid when I was very young, and never thought about it again until I was like 40 years old. Never remembered it. I guess I just suppressed it. It was like whatever. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden one day it came up and it was like, holy crap. I was like, I don't even remember that stuff. But then it just came back and like now I do. And that trauma has interfered with relationships for me that I never thought of. I started going to therapy, and after the men's group thing, I just wanted to just explore everything. So I started going to therapy. I went to like a coach, like a mental coach. Started going to the men's group stuff on a weekly basis, and therapists. We started talking about it. And it was like, man, like that came up. The sexual abuse when I was a kid came up. And it was just like, that has affected your relationships with women. Because, like, as a kid, you didn't know anything. Like, you were taught this sexual stuff as a kid that you shouldn't have been taught at that age. And that just transitioned to so many other things. And now here you are as an adult. And,
Never, like being a man, being having control of everything, your emotions. Yeah. Your life, and it's just all sort of unraveling in this time period for you.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, some things were like fears, so like emotions and being vulnerable. Those were all fears for me that I could never be like that with a woman. So if a woman would like try like, hey, talk to me, I'm like, no, I'm good, I'm fine. What's wrong with you? Nothing, I'm good. What's wrong with you? And that's kind of...
You're the one with the problem.
How did that work out? How did that work out?
I mean, it was super awkward because, like I said, I've never was really into relationships. I've only been in like probably 2 my entire life, like real ones that I was actually a part of.
Invested in.
Yeah, I invested in. Because like I said, I have had women who love me, but I've never loved them back or never gave them what they wanted. But the 2 relationships I was in, I gave into those, and I felt like I ruined them. But at the same time, because like my communication was horrible, I didn't communicate very well. I tried to make myself look like something else that I wasn't, lying. And so basically, the relationships were results of all kinds of different things. But in my mind, like I couldn't quite figure out why I was doing some of these things that I was doing. It just kind of like just came, like it just went. That's just how it was. And
just sort of these subconscious impulses.
Yeah, and I mean, like sexually wise or something. It was kind of one of those things where I only wanted to do it when I wanted to do it, and I was like I only wanted to like take care of myself. Didn't quite care about.
It's very selfish.
Yeah, very selfish on a lot of it, and going to therapy and talking about it and kind of learning about some of these things, like. Those traumas as a kid, as a child, those have kind of created these things in my brain to lead me down these different roads, and and I never knew. I had no idea.
It's kind of like trauma. Once it occurs, it creates these walls, and so you think to be safe, I have to follow through on these actions, right? So it's like, okay, as long as I don't deviate from this path, I'm not going to get hurt.
Yeah.
But then if you experience a lot of trauma, which I have, what can happen is that your walls close. And suddenly you have very limited behaviors you can engage in and be safe.
Yeah.
But you start feeling trapped by yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. And from that point, I my second relationship, that ended, and that person actually kind of made me realize, like, I gotta go to therapy. I gotta, like, I was kind of going through the men's group thing, but I wasn't really doing anything extra. I was kind of just doing the bare minimum of stuff. I just touched the surface. But then once I started going to therapy, and I go like every week, like that just like opened up a whole new different world and new thing for me. And like I even want like more. I actually crave more therapy. Like I'm like, can I go to relationship therapy? Like where's the relationship therapist? I can go. I want to see that one person. And so yeah, it's these traumas from that point that affected other things, and then like my military traumas and military things I had to deal with, I never dealt with those at all. So my emotional side of me, like I was saying before, I've had women who like loved me and wanted to be with me and take care of me and do all these things for me. I just didn't care about because I'm the hard guy. I'm the cool. Like I'm.
Well, you've seen, you've been in war, so it's like I can't imagine. But once you experience this level and come back to like, you're like, man, you're like, it ain't nothing.
Yeah, I mean, like, so like when you deploy and you go to Iraq or Afghanistan or something like that, and you're there for a long period of time, it's very different. Like people don't know. Like you watch a movie and you think like, oh, that's how it is. It's not quite that way. The emotional side of it is not. You don't see like a lot of people don't see death and bombings and crazy. Like a lot of people don't see that. Some people do, but most don't. I saw it, and so for me, my biggest thing was the isolation when you are deployed and you're gone for let's say a year. There's nothing you can. It's not like you can like leave, like the base or the FOB or whatever. Like you can like leave and like go do stuff and go downtown and take a trip. Like, hey, I'm gonna go to Mexico next week. Like, you can't do it. You're there. Like, you're there for a whole. It's almost like you're going to prison, and you go to prison and you're in prison, and that's it. I mean, you get fed. You can go to the gym. You can work, make some money, but you're there. And when you kind of do that over and over and over again, like you just kind of, I don't know, you get a little hardened. And at the same time, like your mind goes and you start getting depressed about things. And then on top of that, when you start seeing like a dead body, or you see like things blowing up around you, or you see like crazy things happening, or, in my instance, I had to like, use my gun. And I had to like help someone who had gotten shot. And I had to like, you see blood and you see these things, and those things start to affect you on top of being isolated, being by yourself, can't see your family whenever you want to, can't go and like explore the world and do stuff that you want to. Now you start adding these other things, these other crazy things that happen, and it's hard to
land.
Yeah. it's hard to just like get back to like a normal mindset of things.
What is normal?
Yeah, because then like once you're gone for a year, then you go and they send you back to the States, or they send you back to wherever you're stationed from, and you're like, and they just leave you. They're like, here you go, now you're back in this other world.
But you felt like you were in a different dimension.
I mean, I felt like I was still stuck there, and I had to now transition back to, I can leave my house and like I can like drive somewhere, and I can like I can go to Mexico tomorrow. I can go wherever, and then like I had to reacclimate to it, and it wasn't easy at all.
So as you are, you go to this men's group, and as the first time you've experienced men actually talking about stuff that they've internalized but don't ever talk about. You're in this group environment where they're saying, this happened in my life, or I did this in my life, or this is something I can't stop doing in my life, or whatever.
Yeah.
And so that was sort of a first step for you to start to feel like potentially you could start to share some of the things that, or maybe they were able to articulate in ways that maybe you weren't yet able to articulate, and from their example you're able to articulate some of the confusion or feelings that you were dealing with once you hit Colorado, right?
Yeah.
And then from there you decided to, things weren't perfect, things didn't automatically change, because it is a process, it is a journey to unravel and step out of the templates that we're functioning in. But then the therapy started to help you. And I would love to hear more about, what you're learning about, you talk about relationships, or, we were talking about guilt and shame and some of these things that you are able to start to identify you're actually feeling. Then what do you do with that? And what are you learning that is so profound right now that is changing, how you interact with the world?
Yeah, so going up there to that men's group and that weekend, I just realized like I wasn't alone. It wasn't me. Like there's almost every single man in this entire world has something like either from traumas or just has something going on with them, and they don't know how to talk about it or deal with it or let it out or anything. And because I think a lot of men just we grew up as you're a man, you have to be strong and no fear and take care of others
and you can do that. Like you can
Yeah.
still take care of people. You can you're very successful in business. You're handling life. Like you can protect your home. Like you still can do all that.
Yeah, but like emotionally, like if you were to come to me with like an emotional stuff, I was like, okay.
Don't have time.
No, like just let it go. Don't worry about it.
It sounds like the masculinity experience you're having is that there's a duality to it. There's like you have to have a hard exterior to be the tough guy, but you also have to have a thoughtful and rich interior. You spent your entire life on the exterior, and you probably nailed that pretty early in your life.
Yeah.
But I think at the detriment of the soft interior, and now in your 40s, you're like, whoa, I'm not stoked on life. I did all the things, checked all the boxes, but why am I having
Yeah, definitely like vulnerability, communication. Those are probably my two things, because I was like, I'm not going to share like my internal feelings with somebody else, with a stranger or whoever. I'm not going to be vulnerable and let
Who's this person?
Because what is the risk in being vulnerable? I'm just curious. I know that, like you said, men aren't used to doing that. So what is the risk in that for you? Is it death? Are you risking like an emotional death?
Well, like now I realize you're not risking anything. It's just you yourself. It's all in your brain. It's all in your own mind. But at the time, like you just judgment, people judging you, fear of what if they know this about me now?
Then will they want to be around me?
Yeah.
When I'm cool, I can tell the story that I was in the military for 20 years, and I could tell the story that I'm a successful business person. If I say this thing, then maybe that changes everyone's perception of you.
Exactly. Like I can sit here, exactly. That's exactly what it is. I can sit here and, hey, I'm in the military 20 years and blah, blah, blah. I've been deployed, this and that. I know about guns and, this kind of thing.
So people are impressed by the facade, right?
Yeah,
But
and that's what I showed everyone. I showed everyone.
Yeah.
This. I just put that shell around me, and that's where I was like, this is what I am. But then like if you get to know me, and you're like, I like seeing little kids play.
Right.
Because like I'm
so pure.
like there's some
It
purity.
doesn't go
It
along
makes
with
you
the-
smile
with
because
the
like
facade.
that's cool. To see that it's. When a kid learns how to play baseball or something, or when you see like a new puppy, or like these things it's so weird to talk about now because I'm like never thought about like that kind of stuff.
That's human.
Or like even like in a relationship, when you see two people who actually like love each other and like are in a good relationship, where they have fun with each other and consider each other for anything. Like, hey, I'm going to the store. What do you want? Not just I'm going to the store, and then they go and do whatever they
I hate
want.
you so much.
Yeah. It's those kinds of things now. Like, never thought about those things or never even considered them or anything. And being vulnerable, I think like it's just for me it was the fear. Like I realized like being this man and whatever else, I was afraid of everything. Emotionally, just afraid of everything. Vulnerability, afraid of it all. Couldn't do it. Hate, like judging. I felt like everyone judged me. I felt like I needed to like fit in. So I'm only going to tell this part about me. I'm not going to tell this other part. I'm not going to let everybody know like, hey, I cry, or I get sad sometimes if I go talk to a girl at at a park or something and she doesn't want to talk to me. Yeah, it makes me a little sad. That's dang, like I'm not saying I had to have a relationship, but just say hello, meet someone new. It's little things like that. You just have to kind of like. That's the vulnerability part, is that you don't want to tell anybody those things.
And I think it was interesting too that you were even talking about vulnerability within a relationship. So you were mentioning the other day when we were chatting just that you're learning about communication and vulnerability within a relationship, and how in the future you hope that is something that you can attain with a partner. Because so tell me a little bit more about that. I don't want to reframe it for you.
Yeah, no. So like we were talking yesterday, and it was just like a healthy relationship, I think, is where two people can actually be vulnerable with each other and talk to each other without any repercussions or judgment or anything. Even if you do judge the other person, you just have to think back, like, okay, like let's say, for instance, if two people are dating, the guy says, hey, I want to try something new kinky in the bedroom or something, you know, and the girl's like, oh my God, he's crazy, or he's a psycho, or he's a, you know, sex addict or something like that. No, like, because maybe that, like, the female may, or, you know, the other person may have something that I want to go shopping more often or something, you know what I mean? Like, and the person's like, you're crazy, you're spending way too much money, whatever. Like, you have to understand, like, everyone's a human being. Everyone has these crazy thoughts and things inside of them that they think about or want to do or want to try. And they'll never talk to anybody else about it because they feel embarrassed. They feel judged. But when you're in a relationship, you have to kind of accept that from each other and be able to, like, I'm not saying, like, you have to be like, okay, I'm okay with it, but communicate about it. Like, be able to talk about it. Be able to say, hey, look, you know, I want to try this new kinky thing, whatever. If you don't want to try it, cool, no problem. But can we just discuss it? And
without feeling like
without me feeling
crazy.
embarrassed or whatever, because I feel like without that communication, like, it's almost like you're hiding secrets, and then that just becomes more secrets that just kind of keep going and going and going,
This
and then
distance that's created.
exactly, then people just they just go apart. And when you can't communicate with someone or talk to them about anything and everything, because when you choose someone to be in a relationship with someone, like, they should be able to start knowing everything about you. And not
That's
just
intimacy.
not just what you want them to know. So, like, I had to deal with that. Like, in my last relationship, I didn't show her everything about me. I showed her what I wanted her to see and what I wanted her to know. And so that's why it
Women
didn't
always
work.
know.
They do.
We always
they
know.
do. They do. And that's why the relationship didn't work.
Can't hide.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of. I want to ask 2 questions. One to you, Aaron,
Okay.
and one to you, Scott. So, what I'm hearing is that you've gotten to a point where you're aware of stuff, and communication is important. And I think that part of why communication may be so important is because this could be me just projecting my own experiences, but we come from a culture where things are obviously communicated. And I think what I've experienced with dating women who are American is that even the idea, like, defining those things is important. Because someone hears communication, they think, oh, communication. They don't realize, like, how much communication there is. It's like the depth.
How
Yeah,
much
yeah.
it takes.
How much-
It takes so much.
Because I feel like
Yeah.
everyone who has read anything about being a human being is like, oh, communication. Like, oh yeah, I know that.
Yeah.
But it's like the depth of it is exhausting sometimes, especially
Yeah.
when you're dating, when you're trying to figure out, like, let's have a good night out, and someone's like, oh, good night out equals X. And you may have a different idea, they may have a different idea, you're both doing whatever, and then you get mad at each other because it's like, why can't we come to terms with what we want? And it's like, well, because you said you wanted a good night out, to me it means this. And I think a lot of times people don't want to define it. They don't want to use words to define, like, what does that mean to me? Because sometimes we don't know. We're so on autopilot, you know? So I guess the question I had was, like, what have you learned in your dating experience that you wish you would have communicated differently? Because I know you've said that you had time to reflect, so not that you can change the past, but what have you learned about, like, I wish I could have communicated this or had this dialogue?
I think the vulnerability part is big. I think that's probably the biggest aspect of it. Is I wish I would have been different. Just let someone know, like, you know, like, if a girl was interested in me and we were friends and I was kind of like, yeah, all right, I'm interested in you, but not to have a full blown relationship. Maybe just like that, like a sexual relationship only. Like, I wish I'd have been communicative about that and say, hey, look, I'm not interested in you in, like, a full relationship kind of thing. Maybe one aspect of it, or even just like hang out with someone, not necessarily a sexual thing, just hanging out because, like, you enjoy their company, just to hang out with them. I wish I'd been able to talk to people better and more, whereas, like, I never talked to anyone. I never told them anything. I just did whatever I wanted to do and then would hurt them later on.
Good for you.
Yeah,
Just kidding. But I mean, you have women
Yeah.
coming to you. That's great.
Yeah, no, but I mean, it
sounds
was
like a cool problem to have.
no, but that's the thing though, because then, like, when you hurt that person,
Diego.
I love your reaction. No, I think most guys would be hearing this and be like,
Yeah,
I
but-
want to be like Scott. Women
Yeah,
are
but-
lining up and.
well, the thing is, like, after the fact, like, if you're a real human being, like, you start feeling bad because when you see the hurt in that person and you see, like, they're going through
Thank
something,
you.
they needed, like, they may not have needed anything from you except for validation, or except, like, hey, like, you look pretty today, or just something. You know, they may have needed that, and if you don't provide it and you just kind of take whatever you want and then you kind of throw them along to the side, that'll get you later on. After it happens a couple times to yourself, you know, and you go through those things, it'll like, you'll just. I felt miserable after a couple years, like, of doing that. And during that, at the time, I was just being selfish and didn't care. But later on, I started thinking about it because I was like, man, like, maybe that's why I'm not in a relationship right now, because like I didn't.
Because you're careless.
Well, yeah, I didn't.
This is Aaron.
Well,
I'm sorry.
No, because
I
the thing is, like, I always took, I never gave. I just kept taking. I took whatever I wanted, and I left.
And you did that because you've been able to trace it all the way back to childhood and not having healthy examples of how to deal with
It was
traumas.
different things. It was different. So it was like traumas with being sexually abused
Yes.
younger, as as a kid. My father, seeing what he did, like he cheated on my mom. He like, instead of being with his family, he went out and was with his mistresses and whatever else. And he'd be gone all night long. I like when I was a kid, I think my dad went to one baseball game of mine as a kid. Like I played for years.
And it's just, fathers are so important. And I have a son, and he's 14, and I gave a lot and nurtured and gave him so much up until, in his earlier years as, the mother and the nurturer. But now I just know that it's so important for him to have a bonded relationship and a good relationship with his dad, and he can see how to now become a man. And when that's not there, I can see how confused it makes and can make young men as they grow up. And it's no reason that, I feel like, when I had my son, I just thought, I hope there's a place for men in this world when he grows up, because I feel like men have been, we've lost our men. And I think we've lost our men for a lot of the reasons that you've mentioned, just that, generational examples, and then other, like, just we live in a world that's full of pain and heartache. And so I think that it's so important that I think it's really amazing and great that your mother, that God had your mother intervene that day and
also you
really
had
rescue you.
A stepdad. Now I don't know your stepdad at all. You just briefly mentioned him.
Yeah.
I get the sense that he probably stepped in a way maybe your dad didn't. I don't
Well,
know.
he stepped in way later, because they've only been married for a few years, so it's not like he was like there when I was younger or anything. But like my dad, what I knew about relationships was pretty much like my mom and my dad hated each other, and they lived together, and they were married. And they stayed together because they had kids, but like that's where I learned about a relationship as a young age. I learned like, okay, the woman does whatever you want them to do. They cook, they clean, they take care of the kids. And
You go do whatever.
maybe they go get a job, and then you can go do whatever you want to do, and then like you just provide. I pay for the house, I pay the bills. and
So
here we
there's a
go.
huge disconnect, the relational disconnect that was missing.
Yeah.
And I think that we could, there's so many different tangents. You said you had a question for me,
I
and
do.
then we have to.
Yeah, well, yeah. Just on that note, I think because you brought up the facade, so I think like kind of your dad defined like a man equals a provider, and if I can provide, I can do whatever I want, which
Yeah.
means like philander or whatever, and then the mom has to fulfill that. And then you're thinking, well, if that's how it is, therefore I just have to provide, which is military.
Yeah.
So in a way, you were just following through on the model you had.
Yeah.
Did it work out?
No.
So,
Not at all.
so I'm curious to. This is such a fascinating conversation to me, and I'm so thankful that you came on and talk about all this. But I'm curious to know. So, Diego asked the poignant question of what happened. Did it work out? No. Why didn't it work out? Because I got to a point where I was looking down the barrel of a gun. And how do you crawl out of those spaces? And you're just showing the example of, well, this happened. There's like a sequence of events that pulls you out of it and pulls you forward and helps rearrange the way you're interacting with the world. You're still you're a successful businessman. You're doing well financially. You have friends. Like you're pulling yourself out, but you're learning about all this other relational stuff that you hadn't learned growing up, which is great. But what happens? So I want to talk about and shift the conversation a little bit to if there's a God factor in all of this, and if you have a faith, and if that has infused or informed any of this second part of your life.
Definitely. So the big thing I've learned from it, and that I've actually accepted, like as far as the God side, is grace.
Wow.
That's been a big thing for me. Like, one, I know I'm going to be okay no matter what happens, and the reason why I'm going to be okay is because, like, He is taking care of me when I don't even think He is. I've already won. Like, I've already won in life already. He knows that. I just don't. And I don't realize it. And for me, if let's say I don't sell a house or something, I'm like, oh man, I lost this money. I'm not going to do that. But he already knows another house is going to come later and you'll be fine. I don't know it. And for me, it's like, it's the grace aspect of it. And then there's also the faith aspect of it. Like, you just have to believe like everything is going to be okay. And if you make a mistake or you do something wrong, give yourself some grace because he's giving you grace.
And that is a counterpoint to the fear of judgment that you always had, and the fear that you always had that you mentioned earlier on.
Yeah.
Grace is the antidote to those things.
Yeah, because like right now, like before when I was younger, I used to always care what other people thought about me. And even not even just younger, even up to probably a couple years ago, like whether it was the clothes I wore or the things that I owned or where I lived or, how I went out or whatever.
Because that all filled into this facade that you were creating.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
so I always thought, impress other people and think about what other people, how they think about me. And that's how you're going to go about life. And probably for the past year, I just haven't given a shit, basically. I just don't care. Like, I don't care. Like, I'll wear a black t-shirt every single day and wear some flip-flops and some shorts. Not in Denver, but
Depends on the day.
yeah, it depends
maybe.
on the day, maybe.
Part of the day.
Part of the day.
But now I'm kind of I just don't care anymore because like I think about it in my brain. I do have to still tell myself about certain things. So like, no one's paying my bills except for me. No one's taking care of me except for me. So like, why am I trying to impress somebody or show somebody this or that? They're not doing anything for me, and they don't care what I think about them because they're doing whatever they want to do. And I never thought about that before. I always
So
thought
it's a level of acceptance that you now have you're integrating in a way. You're integrating
Yeah.
the aspects of who you are, that the parts that you forgot about or pushed away are now sort of growing.
Yep, definitely.
They're becoming more robust, and that is integrating with what you already have going on with your other things that are providing in your career and things like that, and you're understanding spiritually how to lean in and how to trust, which may be something you were never able to do, because if we're not able to trust, we can't be vulnerable because
Yep.
of all those things. So how did you get to a point where you were able to actually trust God, like what and understand grace?
I think it's just seeing all the things I've gone through in life. Like, I'm still here because why am I here? Like, I keep asking myself that question, and I think it's because I need to probably help someone else. Help the other man who like is struggling with stuff and doesn't know how to deal with stuff. Maybe it's another like veteran military person who like doesn't know how to adjust to being outside the military or how to do certain things. So I think for me, the biggest thing is just realize like I'm still here, but why? And the only thing I can come up with is like this dude upstairs is basically like, he told my mom to come see me. I don't know why.
Beautiful.
No, but so like that, and then here I am at 43 years old, learning about things that I never thought. Saying, "Hey, be vulnerable," or be emotion, and like show some emotion, and like help somebody else, or anything like that. Like that's has now come to me now, and the only way it's come to me is because, like I said, the man upstairs is basically has been showing me these things, and before I think I was never looking, I was never paying attention, and now I am, and now I'm like I see these things, and it's like, holy crap! Like like my mom showing up. Why? She never shows up. One day she does. How come I lose a deal in real estate, and the next thing I know, a phone call comes and I have another deal coming in? Or how come I think something bad is happening, but then all of a sudden something good happens right after? And never thought about it before. I would get depressed or be mad or, oh, life sucks, blah, blah, whatever. And now it's like, oh, I realize like, even though something bad may happen, don't worry about it. Don't stress on it. It'll be okay. Because the man upstairs, he has a plan. He already knows what's going to happen for you. And you're going to be successful just in the simple fact is because, like I said, you've already won. The fact that you wake up every single morning, you win. You've already won that day. So everything else that happens is just bonus. And that's the crazy thing. Like, I've never thought about that before. You know, every day I just woke up, did whatever, and that was it. But like now, lately, waking up, I'm like, holy crap, I get to wake up. You know, and I get to
That's
like.
so cool, and such
I
a
get
short
to-
amount of time too, because it was only a few years ago.
Yeah, I
that
mean-
you were so far gone in a way.
Yeah, like 2 years ago.
Yeah, so
Oh, that recent?
congratulations on like the journey up, the spiral up in such a short amount of time, because it's taken me for like way longer than that. But like that's beautiful to see that and hear that so quickly once it started to fall into place for you, how much you've grabbed on and try to learn and change. And you're not going to be perfect, no one is.
Yeah,
You're going to
right.
have your days where you're like, that I didn't do that right.
Yeah.
Again. But if you are grasping this understanding of grace, and then of course with the podcast, which I want to talk about, is God's unconditional love, is such a journey to understand, because we have so many ailments, and we have so many things that make our soul sick and tired. And so if we continue this journey towards understanding how God loves us unconditional, yes, we're trying to do better, yes, we're trying to learn, but there's going to be those times where like when you get into your next relationship where it might not go perfectly, but you're learning and you have all these tools now to bring into it, that piece is there for you. And so did you have any
I
more?
have a question for you.
Oh,
yeah.
okay, but we're at our time.
Well,
we want to.
I think it just, and obviously your story is very compelling, Scott. Thank you for sharing so much. I was just curious from Aaron's perspective, what was it about Scott's story that really captivated you? It is a captivating story, and obviously everyone is listening to it here.
Yes.
But what specifically is it for you? And I'm sure it's come out, but I just want to.
I'm just really grateful and thankful for, we didn't get into a whole lot of it today, but just talking about, the men and how you're willing to talk to and want to talk about how men are struggling in our culture and our society. And there's nothing wrong with being a provider. We're not saying that. You're not saying that. There's nothing wrong with being able to protect your family when you have one, or protecting your home, or being successful. There's nothing innately wrong with any of that. And you can still do that, and men should still do that and continue that. But I love that you're willing to talk about how you're finally able to understand and wake up and see. I don't like these words, wake up, but to start to look at ways in which the compounding trauma, or the compounding life events, or the compounding stories over and over, where you just were throwing them off as either someone else's fault or not even thinking about them, just being callous, and just going on. Something happens when you're deployed and you're just like, it's part of the gig, or a girl is pissed off at you and you're like, that's your problem. I love how you are cracking open to understand like that. None of that is actually this hardness. It almost is like this sensation of like open heart surgery, where they have to like get through this hard thoracic part of your chest to get to your heart. And that part is being sort of broken open, or has been broken open. I think is quite beautiful and profound, and really important to that you are at a place that you are learning about that, to integrate that into the other parts that you're actually really skilled at and able to do and able to handle in this world. And so that really compelled me, because I wouldn't be able to be in the military for 20 years. I wouldn't be able to handle certain things that you've been able to handle. I have handled other things that I've walked through the suicidal ideation and those things. So I'm always very interested in how people crawl out the spiral out of that. And then also just really interested in God's intervention. And just thought that the commentary that you even have, that I don't know that we got into so much today, but just about the men and women, and how women are a part of what's wrong with men right now in our world. And we have to look at ourselves as women and bring this balance back, because it's not about this vulnerability isn't about emasculating men. It's not about you becoming a wimpy man. I think that some people might fear that, these vulnerable men, these men who are crying now, they're never going to be able to, all these things. And I think that's just as much of a lie as many of other things. I think you're still going to be able to to like, you know,
it's like an actualized
it's an
adult.
like it's more integrated. And so that's the other piece is I think it's really interesting just some of the chats we've had about, you know, how the pendulum has swung so far with women trying to be men and men not knowing what to do with themselves because women are overpowering, and like that's a whole other piece that we didn't really get into. But so that's something that I think is really compelling about what you're also exploring with and growing into becoming more integrated as a adult man and growing up and healing some of these internal traumas, and then how is that going to relate to how women are acting in the world right now and kind of how we are functioning. And that's just like I think a whole other round table. But
I think gender dynamics.
Gender dynamics.
Really,
Well, something we talk about.
We talk about a lot
on the podcast.
Yeah,
So.
I think it's so interesting with gender because the biggest fear on both sides is no one wants to be oppressed, and I think there's obviously a lot of history with one gender, women being oppressed for so long. So I think there's just a real pushback on that, and then finding a way to be fully integrated is challenging. And I think what you had, which is similar to what I had, which is a very strong male kind of like machismo idea of what is masculine, and being very clear about this is what it is to be a man. Anything less than that, you're not just a man. Like, you know, there's a whole kind of reason why, right? Like, oh, you don't want to be gay. There's all these like fears. So it's like not just you can't be a man, you're gonna lose man points. It's more like if you show a little bit, you're gone.
Yeah.
And there's this very perfect kind of tension about being a man. You've been able to, I think, really prove, which is more accurate. You have to have an integration to be successful. Otherwise, it ends up leading you down what you're talking about. Because I think
you wake up one day and you're like, none of this worked.
Well, I think we've all had suicidal ideation. That's a big reason why I got on the kick on mental health. So similar was I was like, yo, this isn't working, and those thoughts they'd been a big part of my life as an adolescent, and then as I got older, they kept coming back, and I was like, I need to figure this out, and ultimately I ended up going to a lot of things happened, but part of it was going back to church. It helped. But it's a weird thing because you get so hardened, and it's like you got to be a man. And it's like you get so hard and it's like self-destructive. It's a weird.
Well, another thing too is you have to, as you're learning to be vulnerable, you really do have to know who you can be vulnerable with because not everybody is going to be able to handle.
Yeah.
So that's just part of the learning. And sometimes you test people out and they do not they can't handle it. Okay, and you're like, okay, noted. Let's go find someone else who can really have those conversations that I'm looking to have. And it's part of the.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No,
I was gonna say start wrapping it up, Scott. So.
Yeah.
Now looking to the future, we're looking into the future. Obviously, the work is still being done. It's not complete 100% yet, but it is complete in a way because you're doing it. So what does the next year look like? A couple years look like?
Yeah, what do you want us to know?
Well, I mean, a couple things. So one is that like as men, like I would love to just have men understand like it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to have emotions. It's okay to like. You know, to feel and show your feelings, you know, because... I
mean, if you have seen, I don't know for sure, but I would imagine if I was in the military, things that you might have had to see, that's going to affect anybody. So that's just one aspect. Or sexual abuse.
I mean, so there's, I mean, because like, you know, like when you start thinking of like men in like, let's just say an environment of like in a locker room, they're not talking about their emotions, their feelings. They're talking about, you know, this girl, or I did this weekend, or I hit home run, or what I played sport, whatever. They're not talking about like, hey man, I really felt sad this weekend because I was just like, you know, my parents were arguing and they just made me sad. I didn't like it, or my girlfriend broke up with me and I'm just like, I really really liked her. Like, no one talks about that. Like we don't do that. You know, if you break up with someone, your friend's like, hey, let's go have some drinks and go, you know.
Go find 5 more chicks.
Yeah, let's go.
Bang 3 hot chicks.
Yeah.
That's the advice I got.
That's what men,
everybody.
That's what men kind of like, that's what kind of like we're kind of categorized into. And it's like, dude, it's okay to like talk about certain things. I mean, I'm not saying like go to like all your friends and talk, but I mean, it's okay to like have emotions.
Or
it's
find
okay.
that group that's going to be a place to talk about
yeah,
it.
I mean, like,
maybe your friends aren't the right people to talk to about it.
Maybe, but I mean, it's just a fact of it's okay.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing. I think a lot of men are either afraid, not willing, you know, and it's affecting us.
And I would imagine, I'm going to just assume that you have this huge sense of relief now, confessing a lot of this, getting it
Yeah.
outside of your body.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel a lot lighter, like mentally.
In your spirit, in
yeah,
your
I mean,
mind.
mentally, I feel a lot lighter. I'm actually connecting a lot more with people in different ways, and like my mom, I actually connect with her now, whereas before, like we used to like we kind of like argued and fought a little bit when I first moved here, because like I just wouldn't let them in, and but now like emotionally things have changed to where like now I actually like see my mom and I talk to her about things, and we communicate, and she understands me a little bit better, and she understands like, okay, I'm gonna leave him be for a little bit today to kind of let him like get the stresses out, or hey, I need you to talk to me, let's talk, and she knows how to approach me now, whereas before she didn't know how to approach me, and I'd bite her head off or something, and it was like way bad. And so now like that has changed a lot, and even in relationships with other friends, whatever, I'm able to talk to it like a guy. Like I have a good buddy of mine who lives in Las Vegas, and I tell that dude, I'm like, hey man, I'm glad you're in my life. Like, you know, I don't. I'm glad you're in my life because you're one of the few people like I can, if I need something, like you'll be there. And there's no like facade. There's no like I gotta impress you, or I gotta like do something for you to do something for me or whatever. It's just a regular dude who's just like, hey man, I need some help with something. Can you just
an understanding.
Yeah, just talk. And it's like I would have probably never ever done it before. And now
handle
to
everything.
do that, just to talk to a friend of yours, and it's okay. And then on top of that, like my friend circle has been very like it's condensed down to like very few people. And I'm actually happy with
Like
that.
high quality. Like
Yeah,
people
I'm
that-
very, very happy with just a few people that I have in my life. I don't like being around tons of crowds now. Like, I don't like, going and partying and stuff. I don't want to do that stuff. Like, I'd rather just a couple of friends and I'm good. Like, my life is complete with it.
It's
And
sweet.
yeah, and especially the church and God aspect of it has definitely been a huge thing, because now, like, I go to church every Sunday. Now, like, I actually pray a lot more, which I only pray when I needed something. God, help me get out of this situation. God, please help me.
How did I do this?
Yeah, like God, please, just let this work out right. Now it's like I just pray, just be like, hey God, help, just look after my friends and my family and my friends' families.
It's more of a conversation, a communion.
Yeah, it's not like, hey God, can you can just please make sure like I don't like lose this job or whatever. Now it's just, hey, so how's your day going? Great, mine's good today. Thank you for letting me wake
beautiful.
up. I appreciate it. Please take
And
care of my
that's more of
families.
like a heavenly father, like a father type of
Yeah.
relationship that.
And I know that if a mistake happens, if I do something wrong, or because you already know internally if you do something wrong or make a wrong choice, I'm like, okay, if it's something like too crazy or bad or whatever, I know like, okay, God already knew I was gonna make that decision, but He's already forgiven me for it, so I should forgive myself for making the wrong decision or doing something wrong, and just don't do it again.
Repent and sin no more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like I've learned a lot of that recently, and that's what I kind of want other men to understand. Like, even if you're not like religious or believe in God, whatever, one, just open up and like just try to understand like you're forgiven, you have grace. There's every other man is just like you. We all have our own stuff. It's okay to be emotional. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to like to show those things.
Be honest, not
Yeah,
hide.
yeah. You don't have to impress anyone.
Yeah.
And I think almost like biblically, there's a framework for what you're talking about, which is men working together. Like I think in some ways that's sort of the intent of, iron, forges iron, I believe, or iron sharpens iron.
Yeah.
So I think that's sort of the intent of.
Yeah.
You look at study Old Testament, New Testament. Like there's, even with the disciples, there's a model there, which is like men are intended to do life together, and then somehow we, in particularly the United States and really a lot of countries, you lose that. But I think
Yeah.
it's intended to have, and I think that's hard because you have to be willing to speak into other guys' lives, and sometimes, especially guys, we don't want that.
Yeah.
Pride pops up.
Yeah. And then the thing about like the women aspect of it is, for so long it was men dominating, wouldn't let women into the workforce and didn't pay them enough and equal pay and all that kind of stuff. And now we've gotten to a point like, okay, women are now, CEOs, and women are now, higher up and they have their own businesses and are successful and stuff. But the thing that women, we talked about yesterday, that I feel like women fought so hard and so long to be equal and to be, appreciated and be, to get to this level. Now they're doing the same thing that men were doing back then. Like I told you, I was trying to join a real estate group, and the woman told me, she was like, I'm only hiring women. And I was like, wait a minute. If I would have done that, if I said, hey, sorry, I can't hire you, I'm only hiring men, it would have been, craziness. But now women are doing it, and it's like the pendulum swing, like we said.
Yeah.
It's men were doing it, now women are doing it, so what's the next choice? Men are going to do it again. And then women are going to do it again. And it never stops. And I'm not saying like women have to like be the person to do it, but you fought so
You're
hard
just
and so long.
commenting on the culture.
Yeah, I mean, women fought so hard and so long, and I appreciate it. I'm grateful, but like
At the same time, there has to be room for men.
Yeah, there. I mean, I'm not saying it has to be room for men, but I think there just has to be a point where like, okay, this stuff just stops, and like everyone just
break the cycle.
Just break the cycle.
Because
I think it's just going to continue to keep going around and around and around and around and around. And that's to me, that's a huge thing that I would love, to have women working with me, and I want to work with women, and women can appreciate me, and I can appreciate them, and I can talk to them, and they can talk to me, because I think women also have the same problem, but they can't talk to a man because they'll feel judged, or they'll feel
like he wants something.
Yeah, or or he doesn't love, like what you talked about, like in a relationship, the communication side of it. If I tell someone like, hey, I like blondes, normally I go for blondes, and you're a brunette, and here we are dating, she's gonna feel like she's not good enough, and that's not the case. It's just he's just saying that because he's like telling you who he is and what he liked, but something about you is what he chose. Because he could have easily said, okay, I'm gonna choose a blonde, whatever, but he chose a brunette. He could have just have the conversation with him like, hey, I don't appreciate that, but tell me why, tell me more, let's talk about this. Because she could be like, hey, you have a dad bod. I really normally have guys who like hit the gym every day, and that's what I normally go for, but I chose you. You know what I mean? Like, it goes both ways on stuff, and I think that's just people just need to communicate and talk, and I think both sides. But more men, we definitely need to talk a lot more and communicate and be vulnerable. But women also
need to be able to open and receive and not feel threatened.
Exactly.
And judging. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay,
so high five.
I want a high five too.
Yeah. We have to wrap up.
So now well, first of all, we're gonna wrap up the interview here. Scott, thanks so much for opening up.
A question.
We have a question we're gonna finish with, but before we do that, I just want to say thank you so much for opening up, being vulnerable, genuine, authentic. It's a lot of deep work to do this stuff, and we haven't known each other very long. I know you've known Aaron for a long time. But thank you for opening up, and I hope that some of this is helpful for people who've known you, who maybe possibly been hurt by you or whatever, just to contextualize some of what's occurred in your life. And I also feel like it's helpful to have, we've had other great guys on this project. Thank you for just joining and being vulnerable, because I think that's such a key part of being a mature adult. So yes, we have a question.
So I always like to finish our podcast. I hope you had time to think about it.
I have. I still haven't.
So the question is, I always like to wrap the podcast up with this question.
Okay.
And the reference is, my son, when he was 6 years old, 6 or 7, ran up to me and he said, Mama, the only thing you want to think about is love. And I said, oh, really? Tell me more. Why is that? And he said, because love is so precious. It's so powerful that it can break things that aren't true. And so I want to know, in your life, as you've experienced God's love and love from other men, unconditional love from other men, and your family, what in your life has love broken that isn't true? What lies that you believed were true has love come in and broken?
I think it's that I'm just like my father. I always thought I was going to turn out to be just like him, and I tried to do everything I could to not be like him, but I ended up being like him. And I think from just my family, God, the other men, like my men's group and stuff, my therapist, that isn't true. I can be whoever I want to be, and I have to accept that, and I have to understand that people love me and they want to help me and they want to be there for me. I have to accept it, cherish it, take it, But yeah, I think that's the big thing is
That's
like
cool that you don't
that
have
I'm
to
not
be.
I'm not like my dad.
You can break that generational pattern,
Yeah.
and you can start at any time.
Yep.
That's so cool. Thank you.
Give me a little to think about there.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I can empathize as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Scott,
you.
for everything, and thank you all for watching or listening. We're really grateful. We may break this up into a couple different, chapters, but we just appreciate it. And
Yeah, this is Love is the Remedy. This is,
Diego Albino Rodriguez Contreras, mucho gusto.
and I'm Erin. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.
This was Scott.
Yeah, let's go. Hey, yeah.
Yeah, have a long Spanish.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
So yes, I just want to dedicate this to a couple people. One, my therapist, Susan. Thank you very much for everything you do for me. My stepdad, Vinny Lopez. Thank you for being the man you are, and appreciate you. Stepbrother, Vinny Jr. Thank you for helping me and kind of showing me a way and guiding me through this. My mom, of course, Evelyn. Thank you. I appreciate you. You mean everything to me. And Nicole Trujillo, thank you, ex-girlfriend. Thank you very much for pushing me and kind of making me realize the things I need to do with my life and fix it. So thank you all very much. I appreciate all of you very much.